I don't know.
Yeah.
What is the audience that we're expecting? Is everybody a member of um the what's it called? The MSLA, or is this folks from your external communities?
So most of the folks here are from the community. I think we had about 40 something registration. So I'm just going to probably send a reminder to see
Okay.
if probably they forgot or something. So we had about 40 plus registrations. So we should have the recording. So we could post that on the YouTube channel and they can catch it.
Give me a sec. I'm trying to pull up my presentation.
Yeah, that's okay. We could probably give them probably till 5 then, and then we can keep it if that's fine by everyone. See, I think we can see your slide now. I can.
Yeah, I'm just waiting till 5:10 and then I'll get started.
All right, great.
All right, looks like it's 5:10 and we can get started. Um, since there's not a lot of people on this call, let's see if we can make this as interactive as possible. To get a sense of where your, I guess, knowledge space is, can you raise your hand if you've heard of mixed reality, extended reality, you've had anything to do with the whole extended reality space before? This is not your first conversation about extended reality. Can you raise your hand? Okay, I see Justice. Israel. Oh, that would have been very awkward if you didn't raise your hand, Israel. Israel Afolabi. All right. Okay. So more than half of the people on the call are hearing about mortality for the first time. That's exciting. I'm gonna start with kind of introducing myself. My name is Kendra. I work with the Mixed Reality team as a community and ecosystems partnerships manager and also the business strategy and operations manager for the team. What that means is that my roles are generally split into externally making sure that we are doing the right things to drive impacts in on the continent, making sure that people are aware of what mutuality is. People are excited about trying out this new technology and seeing what ways that it can impact their lives. But internally, I'm also in charge of making sure that the team is, running as it should, making sure that we are building the right environment to let us build the kind of products that we believe we should be building. And that shows up in a lot of different ways from both like strategy and operations, but to also taking back feedback from events like this to our engineering team to be like, this is what people that are using our product or think about the products and such and such. But yeah, that's me. But that's not what we're here to talk about today. We're talking about fundamentally, we're talking about connection, right? Because the thing that makes humans so interesting is that we're constantly looking for ways to um, connect with each other, right? You want to be a part of a group. You want to feel seen, heard, understood. You want to feel like you are being properly represented in whatever space that you're in. And this has been such a driving force of especially technology, but just humanity as a whole. And a lot of times, if you look at like the technology and the way technology has been evolving over time, is basically how do you get people to connect with each other faster? Okay, we used to be able to send letters through post or, through pigeon carrier. But how do you get your information to the other side of the world faster? How do you share your experiences? I'm currently having this conversation with you, but I want my sister in a different continent to know about it. How do I share this experience with her? Do I send her a recording? How do I send her the video so that she can, observe, send her an attendee link so she can join? Basically, a lot of technologies. How do we share our experiences with each other, regardless of where we are? And so the current I guess evolution of technology has been basically people trying to answer that question. And I like this quote a lot. It says that the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture a little way past them into the impossible. And some people started thinking, okay, we know what is possible. We know what we can do now. What is the venturing past this? For the technology and the way to evolve technology to suit our needs. And that's kind of how the idea of extended reality is born. Extended reality is basically using technology to augment the way you experience reality. That can show up in a lot of different ways, right? Um, it is currently broken into broadly into three buckets. Some people might say it's more than three, but I'm sticking with this three for now. Broadly broken into these three buckets of virtual, augmented, and mixed reality. But all three of them are trying to do the same thing. It's like, how do we combine your, so to speak, real life experiences with technology to create even richer experiences for you and make those experiences immersive and feel real to you. Um, and so virtual reality is basically doing that by um, I guess creating a new reality for you to observe, right? What are the ways in which you experience reality? You experience reality by the things that you see, the things you hear, things you can touch, things you can taste. And so virtual reality basically creates a computer generated reality and immerses you in that. So when you're experiencing virtual reality, you're removed from your quote unquote real world space and put into a digital recreation of a space. And this is very interesting. It has very, very numerous applications, right? Especially in like training and entertainment, education, where you've seen like flight simulators where people are put in like flying experiences and they can like feel like they're interacting with the controls of a plane. They feel like they can see like they're in the clouds regardless of where they actually are. And so virtual reality really doubles down on the whole giving you a whole complete different experience from the reality you're in. Why that is great is that it removes the need for people to be physically anywhere to experience things. You can feel like you're skydiving from some place in Paris while sitting in your room in Oshogbo. And that's a great thing. Virtual experience also allows you to interact in that digital space. So I've seen a training simulation where people can put out fires. It was a fire drill. And so you can go and quote unquote pick up a fire extinguisher, learn what parts of it you're supposed to be operating to turn off the fire and feel like you're actually engaging with the environment. And that's virtual reality. I just have to say, like I said, it's a small group. We can be interactive. So if you have any questions at any point in time, just stop me. If I'm speaking too fast, also stop me. Yeah, so that's virtual reality. Any questions about virtual reality before I move on?
Not at this time, no.
Fantastic. All right. A good example of virtual reality is Altspace. Um, I'm actually going to come back to this slide because Altspace has this particular picture we're looking at has like other implications, but Altspace is a VR space where you can be part of like this one right now is a concert. I think this was Burning Man actually, where you can quote unquote attend with other people in this virtual space, and you yourself are an avatar, and people can see that digitized version of you and engage with that as well. Also, do you have a question? No. Okay. Yeah, so that's VR. Moving on to AR. So virtual reality puts you in a computer generated space. Augmented reality brings the computer generated assets and images to your reality as an overlay. So basically, instead of you being immersed in a separate reality, you are in your reality. Oh, I forgot to mention one thing. Because of the way virtual reality works, the only way to experience virtual reality right now is by using virtual reality headsets. But because augmented reality just needs you to see certain digital overlays in your reality, right now the platform that people use the most to experience augmented reality is your mobile phone. Most smartphones of this day and age can have AR capabilities pre-installed, and you can see AR in a lot of different ways, a lot of different things. This example basically shows somebody looking at London through an AR application, and you can see that they have like world locked holograms, where you can see signs about the place that you're in. You can see directions on the road that tell you where you're going, and you can like just basically it's your reality, but it gives you so much more information about the reality that you're looking at that you can then use to interact. The cool thing about that is that you can still like go through your life, but like with more context in that world. The problem, I guess, with AR is that you generally cannot interact with the digital assets that you can see. You can look at them, but you can't interact with them. Um, so in VR, you could interact with the things, but they're purely digital recreations. You're in a digital space. You can't interact with your own real world. In AR, you can interact with the digital assets. You can look at the digital assets. You can interact with your real world, but you can't interact with the digital assets. Does that make sense?
Okay, well, is it like created from like a set of codes, or is it like pre-recorded or pre-created?
When you say is it created, do you mean the digital assets?
Yeah, like okay, so how it basically works is that is this how it works? Like assuming I want to like turn off an extinguisher, turn off a
Mhm.
fire. So I'll take
Mhm.
an extinguisher and press the release,
Mhm.
and it releases
Mhm.
releases the. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it releases the gas that turns off the fire. So now that release of gas now is it driven by code, or is it a pre-recorded release?
I'm guessing you're using the virtual reality example that I gave. It
Yeah.
is it I'm not if I'm understanding your question correctly, you're asking if the what would essentially be the animation of the fire extinguisher triggering on to turn off the fire, if it's a pre-recorded thing or if it's driven by code.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
think of it like a game. And there's a series of inputs that are that you can do in any game, and like a series of events that will happen based on those inputs. Basically the same thing, right? So I guess the short answer to your question is that it is driven by code. Yeah.
Okay, so pre-recorded stuff that is driven by code.
I mean,
So everything has to be pre-recorded. Like
I'm
the
not.
animation now has to be pre-recorded.
Mhm. I'm not
You
sure what you mean by
you cannot
pre-recorded.
not everything.
Sorry, like
Hi,
pre-developed.
I think I understand what Osinachi is trying to say. So
Mhm.
it's like if I'm the one, if I'm the one playing the game on my end and
Mhm.
Osinachi is playing the game on his end, if we
Mhm.
are going to see the same video. So I
Mhm.
think it's dependent on the code.
Oh,
Some you
yes.
could code it in a way that, yeah, exactly. I think that was what
Okay.
he was trying to say.
Okay.
So
So if your
I'll leave the answers
question,
to you.
okay, I see. If your question is, oh, if two people are in a shared space and I do something and I see something, is that same thing going to persist for you that is viewing this space with me? You're not the one that did the thing. You're just looking at the thing. Um, I'm gonna talk about mesh in the later slides, but that's actually one of the things that we're working on our team is how do you make sure that shared content is persistent for all of the participants of that session. So like if me and Israel and you, Nnachi, are in a party together, in a concert in VR together, watching Burna Boy, and like Burna Boy removes his shirt and throws it into the cloud, we three of us see that happen in the same in the at the angle with which we see it. There's something called I guess for this group, let's call it spatial awareness, right? If I'm standing on one corner of the room and Israel is standing on the other corner and he throws that shirt, we should both see that happen relative to where we're standing. Because the idea is that if we're in real world and that happened, that's exactly how we experience it. So everything from audio to what we hear to what we see is going to be relative to our spatial understanding of the space. But yes, the content should be persistent, and that's a lot of what we're working on the mixed reality team.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Um, Justice, you have a question?
Yes, I do. So question is, I've heard about several times where they said using of a VR headset gives dizziness. And so how long can somebody use this thing without actually getting dizzy in terms
Oof,
of using the VR
that
headset?
is a very, very, very objective question. Subjective question, sorry, because like it, I have found that varies from headset to headset, from person to person, from experience to experience. Um, I can wear a Samsung Odyssey headsets and play Beat Saber for hours and not have a problem with it. But I can spend time in the same headset playing a first-person shooter and feel nauseous in like 10 minutes flat. And like that has more to do with me and the way I experience these things than it has to do with the headset itself. So like the question of how long does it take for you to feel sick in the headset is it's like it's the same way motion sickness is different for a lot of people, right? Some people don't experience it at all. Some people experience it the moment they get into a car. I feel like it's hard to find one answer to that question.
Okay, thank you very much. Then, sorry, but this is like just going into like commercial use. Now, in
Yeah, sure.
case, for example, I'm sure everybody has watched majority of us watched Ready Player One. So I'm trying to understand now, in that kind of setting, is it
Yeah.
possible for you to use it like a whole day without actually having? You said it's relative, yes, but let's talk about it in general now. Is it possible for a person to use it without having motion sickness?
I mean, if you just wear a headset watching a movie for a whole day, I don't want to like give what can be represented as a definitive answer to that question, because it will most certainly be wrong. Um, I would say, you would have to try it for yourself and see what you're most comfortable with. I think that we're very, very, very far from where the world of Ready Player One was, where they're like people are basically living in VR. I don't think we're there yet. I don't think any of the headsets that are currently available are there yet. I think that and that's why like all the companies, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, Google, are constantly researching how do we make the hardware more suitable to humans. Basically, how do we make batteries last longer? How do we make the hardware lighter? How do like this is research that is always ongoing in any company that is serious about VR or MR. So we're not there yet. I don't know that I would even advise spending a day in any headsets. um so let's say
Okay.
let's say you'd have to like find what you're most comfortable with and just go with that.
All right, cool. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. If there are other questions, I'm gonna move to the next few slides so we can um, get to mesh, which is what I'm excited about. So I've talked about VR and AR. And MR is kind of the combination, I guess, of both. So in MR, you're still viewing your reality, and you have digital assets overlaid in that reality, the same way you have in AR. But the difference is that you can actually interact with those digital assets, and that kind of just changes the game completely, because you then have situations like this where you're using the information from the digital overlay to influence the thing that you're doing in the physical world, and like the digital overlay is changing to reflect that, and like you can add real-time digital notes as you're making that. So like take as an example, this doctor looking at the X-ray of a person's spine, and like he can make notes on like the things that need to happen while observing the overlay, and like those notes are going to be persistent for the next person that is viewing that thing, right? And like that just changes the way that we interact with those holograms. You can do everything from having like kind of like a shared session where, so if you look at the picture on the bottom right, where somebody is basically having a Skype conversation, because I think that's Skype. Is it a Skype or Teams? A Teams conversation with someone that is walking her through the work that she's doing, and they can see what she's doing, she can see what she's doing, and they can see the changes that she's making based on their own digital representation of the model that she's working on. And like that just changes the way that you can use mixed reality for everything from manufacturing to health to education. And so like part of what we're excited about is then how do you take that? This is another example of like what that looks like is you can see the overlay of the pipes showing you how the pipes should look, and like the people that are working on the thing just have to follow that overlay. And it's such a great way for training people that are essentially working in manufacturing or frontline type industries where they can't be looking at their phone or looking at a computer when they're doing the thing. They want to be able to like be immersed in the thing that you're doing, but also still have the information ready to them. So all they have to do is wear a headset, in this case a HoloLens, and have all of that information available to them in the thing that you're doing, while persisting, like keeping all the digital records that they need. They have scenarios where they need like precise geometry, geometrical layouts, and you can do that in the digital world better than you can do that if somebody was just like doing like a physical representation. Um, yeah, so that's the people are. This is a real world picture. It wasn't like an ad or anything. These are ways people are currently applying mixed reality to their work. But I feel like I said in the beginning, humans run on connections, right? It's one thing to be able to experience something, but it's even better when you can experience, when you can share that experience, and that's kind of where Microsoft Mesh comes from, right? Microsoft Mesh is, so it's the goal is to allow you be your authentic self, both physically and virtually, and share that self with other people and build experiences together. So we say that it allows you feel presence, experience together, and connect from anywhere. The feel presence means that there's a way everybody has a mental image of themselves, right? And in every interaction that you have, you come up as your mental image of yourself. So your voice is your voice, your the way the language you use. I don't want to have to learn a whole new language just to be able to share my thoughts with you, as an example. So mixed reality, Microsoft Mesh specifically, takes those interactions and brings them into the virtual space. So everything from translations. So as I'm talking to you, we're in a shared space, but we don't speak the same language. I'm just speaking to you in my language, and there's like a text translation that happens real time where you can read what I'm saying and respond in your language, and I can read what you're saying. So it's we don't like we can have a communication as our authentic selves, but like still feel like a part of a group. You can experience together basically is the kind of thing that I was saying with Osinachi's question earlier, where it's like if we are in the same place together and want to take a selfie, we can. Why can we do that in the virtual space? How can we share these experiences so that if I go and somebody throws a cup on the floor, we both see it land in the same place, or we both like have the same experience. Why can't we play chess together using just mesh, right? And this is like one of the things that we're super excited to be working on is how do we create those shared experiences for people so that even in the virtual space they have the same satisfaction from interactions as they do in the physical space. And then the last bit of it is connect from anywhere. Connect from anywhere basically means, and this is one of the goals that we have, is that it shouldn't matter where you are in the world or what device you're connecting from. So are you on your phone? Are you on your laptop? Are you using a headset? Whatever headset you're using, you should be able to connect to whatever experiences you want. So those are the three pillars of the Microsoft Mesh, which is Microsoft's take on mixed reality, and that's like our, I guess, one of our champion mixed reality products. Yeah, I already talked about all of this, but just to, if you're interested in reading over again, does anybody have questions so far? No? Okay, fantastic. So yeah, field
No,
presence.
fine.
Thank you, Justice. Both for you to be able to self-identify and show up and have control over the way you show up. A dark-skinned female of a certain height, a certain weight, a certain size. I wear glasses. I love the color red and black. And like I want this to be true in physical or virtual space, and I want to be able to have the same way I have control over like my wardrobe and what I can wear in the physical world. I want to have that same control in the virtual world. as you can see, this is like a representation. In the first picture, the woman in front is a holographic representation of the woman behind, and like they're basically the same person, and that's kind of like the goal for how I want to be able to show up in the digital space. It should anybody that knows me should be able to meet the digital representation of me and know that that is who I am and have the same interaction. Shared context means that if you look at this picture, you can see there's one avatar and two quote unquote real people. But like they're having the conversation about the same content because there's a shared context. We can all see the content. We can all add notes. We can all like share our thoughts and opinions, and basically we can design and build together. And finally, the information relay channels means the thing I was talking about around spatial awareness, understanding the different states of, without trying to go to technical, I guess, the rest states of people and content and models and things in this shared session that you're having should be the same for all of the people in that space. Does that make sense?
Could you go again?
So the same way that, okay, using just like state of matter, right? The same way that if we were in the same space and my dress was wet and then became dry, we would both see that my dress was wet and then became dry. And so the dynamic changes of the different things and people in this space, because we're in the same place physically, we both experience a change of state at the same time and equally. We would have the same sense of the things. This should also be true virtually if you're sharing the virtual space. As the state of things change for me, they should also change for you. We should be able to experience that shared information relay about the session that we're in.
That makes sense.
In real time. In real time, because it'd be super awkward, right? If like, I don't know, what's the name of a Nigerian artist? Wizkid said yeah on stage, and then I heard it like 30 seconds later, and you heard it like you've already shouted your own. Like it doesn't feel like we're sharing the experience, right? So it's things like that, making sure that both in real time and like in high quality, we're experiencing the session in the same way. So that's what it means to feel presence. Connecting from anywhere, I already talked about, is basically anywhere in the world, any device you're using on, it doesn't matter. You like space should be negligible in the way that you're working. And that sounds great to say, but like if you've ever played online games and you had to like deal with lag, you know how much of a problem that can be. But part of the work we're doing is how do we make sure that our audience, no matter where they are in the world, no matter what platforms they are in the world, how do we make sure that our products are accessible enough to people with different levels of access to the internet and technology to all have the same shared experience in the space? And that's actually a hard question to answer, but it's one of the things that we're working on. I like to add this page mostly because when I talk about mixed reality, just as I'll come to your question in a second, when I talk about mixed reality, essentially in Nigeria, people tend to be like, oh, okay, so Oyibo something is not, we're not doing that here yet. But that's not true. There are local businesses right now that are really doubling down on virtual reality and mixed reality and augmented reality. And I've actually met a couple of them. I know startups that are working on. So the fire extinguisher example I used earlier was actually from a startup I met 2 years ago that was doing health and safety training in VR for oil companies that are offshore. Because usually what happens is that those people have their trainings in the classroom, and in the class somebody comes and tells them, this is how you use a fire extinguisher, this is what you do in case of emergency. And like most things you learn in the classroom without actually experiencing, when the emergency actually occurs, people don't remember anything that they learned in class. So that the VR training helps them actually like build muscle memory and understanding of how this thing happens in real life. And that's like in Nigeria. Somebody in Lagos is a startup in Lagos that built that. I know somebody else that was working on education in AR, where basically for public schools that don't have the infrastructure for like labs for chemistry and physics and biology, you can use AR to kind of like represent that in some way. So when people use their phones and hover over some images in their textbook, there's like an animation that plays like a digital asset that shows like the reaction. So if the if the textbook is talking about, I don't know, the human heart, and it's just a drawing of the human heart, and the AR version of it, just looking at it through your phone, will show you a 3D model of the heart with like different labels on what the different parts are called. Um, and the model is like rotating so you can see it from like different angles, and it just brings the textbooks to life for students that don't have labs where they would have actually been able to see these things. So there are people that are doing this right now in Nigeria, and I feel like there's so much potential in that market for people to jump into. Um yeah, this goes without saying. The possibilities are beyond endless, right? I feel like with a little bit of creativity and some so a little bit of creativity and some desire to change the world, I feel like there's no limits to what you can build using extended reality. And now I will take your question, Justice.
Thank you very, very much. The thing you said about the HR personnel is health and safety personnel was really mind blowing, to be honest. And I get to see how that is really useful. The classroom disconnect between real life and what you really have to do. So that is really useful as well. So my question is, I think it's more has to do with 2 slides back when you talked about accessibility. Now, I know the issue of accessibility in web dev, for example, is really important in terms of data usage and the fact that a lot of people need to be able to access it at the same time. So, and I know, I'm guessing now for a fact that this mixed reality like it transfers a lot of data for you to be able to get this accurate amount of will I say display.
Yeah.
Okay, so is it like is there a feasibility that, for example, now obviously 5G and 4G network would be really perfect for something like this, yes?
Yeah.
But what about people who are operating on a 2G network? Is there any possibility that there is a chance that they may experience the same level of immersive experience that somebody is experiencing on the 4G or 5G network?
That's a great question. It's a very real question. Because it's one of the questions that keep us up at night. 2G is probably, I don't think you can even, I don't know, use WhatsApp on 2G. So I probably wouldn't go as far. I probably wouldn't go as far as 2G to answer your question. But you're right in saying that like 5G right now is only available in a handful of cities around the world, right? Which would be, I guess, perfect for a thing like this. And 4G is more commonplace, but that's not to say that everybody has access to it, right? But I think that one of the benefits of the fact that our team is globally distributed, so we have folks in Lagos, in Dublin, in the UK, in Redmond, in New York, in Canada. We have, and these are like very, very globally distributed people. And like, so we feel like if we can find a way to make, just like while building the product, we have to build with like geographical just accessibility in mind, right? And then the next phase is now saying that what does bandwidth accessibility look like? And to be honest, that's a question that we're still asking, right? An interesting piece of information for me to have now would be like the thing you just said about people using 2G. Do you have a number, like if there are, I don't know, is it three these days, 4 billion people in the world that use the internet, how many of them are still on 2G? How many of them are on 4G? Where are these people? What is the global distribution of people on 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G? How do we, and like I feel like this is research that is still ongoing and research that is going to advise how we answer that question, and how we build for that question. So it's definitely a question we're asking. It's definitely a thing that we're building with that in mind. I don't know that we have a good answer yet, but it's most certainly something that we're thinking about.
Okay, so you probably need to do more research in terms of getting that
Yes.
data to back up
Yeah.
your listing. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Great question. Any other questions? Where to go from here? So if you the Metrics HoloLens and Mixtuality Meetup group has recently, I think they started this year, they've been doing a weekly event titled Journey into XR, where they bring different people from the Mixtuality team to come talk about topics around how to get started in XR. I think that is a very useful place to start if that's something you're interested in. If you learn better from reading instead of watching videos, then I'd advise going to the Mixtuality documentation instead. There's everything there from if you want to learn about Altspace or the HoloLens or mixed reality in general, what other mixed reality products we have apart from Microsoft Mesh, how to get started in all of them, how to start playing with all of them. That's the place to go. A subset of that, but I wanted to call it out separately because I think that's it's essential, is MRTK samples. If you already know how to code, you are already somewhat conversant in Unity, and you're just like, okay, I already know how to do these things. I just want to know how to take the knowledge I have and like use it to build mixed reality solutions. Then you want to go play with MRTK samples. MRTK is mixed reality toolkit. Basically, it allows you do little to no code to add mixed reality inputs into your solution. So things like hand gestures, eye gaze gestures, things that make mixed reality basically. It's pretty cool. It's super cool. I would suggest checking that out. If the only prerequisite is that you should be able to find your way around Unity. You don't have to be a pro, but you should be able to find your way around Unity to use that. The easiest way to get started in mixed reality in extended reality is to join a local extended reality community. I love it whenever Israel does things like this, because I think that having these conversations, asking your questions, is the best way to get excited about building for extended reality. So find communities like this that you can join. I think I can say this here. Next month, we plan to officially, I guess, announce the mixed reality community for Africa that we're building, and what that's going to mean for the way that we engage in a community. So look out for that. Israel will have details when they're available, which is another reason to join this community, I guess. Because when I want to talk to people in the students community about mixed reality, Israel is generally the first person I go to, so follow him. But yeah, if you want to do immediate next step, these are the things that I would suggest: is join the right communities, read the right documentations, play around with things. I feel like you can't ever really learn anything until you try it yourself. So play around with things. Yeah, and that is the whole session. I have a video that I was going to play, but I don't know. Let me see. Let me know if you can hear it. Can you hear the audio?
I can't hear from
Oh.
my end, but if anyone can hear it, please confirm. Okay, good. I think some people can hear it.
So I think that I should have shared. I didn't share it with audio, but that's fine. I can just. Are you interested in the video? Should I reshare?
Yes, please.
All right. Give me a sec. right. Let me know if you can hear, and I'll just thumbs up so I can see. Okay, I don't know what's going on, but the audio, apparently you guys couldn't hear. Oh, it's, or you can? I'm getting mixed answers.
So, Kendra, is it possibly something you can share via a link? Probably
sure
drop
there's
the
a
link in the
link.
chat so we could.
Like, if you
Okay,
literally
great.
if you just Google Microsoft Mesh, because this was the video that we used when we launched Mesh last year. It's not hard. I'll just I'll find the video from the chat. The link to the video and drop it in the chat. But yeah, that is all I had. I always end with this quote because I think that it is very true. If you change the way you see the world, you can change the world you see. I think that this is just true about like anything in life. If you change your perspective, if you change the way you perceive and engage with any experience, it would automatically change like your attitude towards it. But mixed reality and extended reality as a whole makes this even more true. So yeah, that is my entire presentation. Any questions?
I think I already asked all my questions.
Yeah, thank you, Justice.
Please, I have a question.
Go ahead.
You made mention of coding. Can we use any language or a specific language?
That is a great question. So that's a hard one. I want to say you can use any language. It really depends on what platform you're building for and what tools you're building with, right? As an example, if you're using Unity, you might want to know some C sharp, because it's just I have found that is the easiest language to code in Unity for. But I know that there are tools that, so like I think Spark AR uses React. Yeah, if you can write code at all, chances are you can find a tool that you can use. But I'm generally partial towards a C sharp, and the leap from whatever you currently write to whatever language you need to write for the tool that you're building with shouldn't be that hard, because you already understand how structure and algorithms work, and it would be, yeah, if you write any code at all, I feel like you would be able to find your way. I generally just advocate for C sharp because it's a beautiful language.
Thank you. And then the toolkit, do we need a physical device or it's maybe as a simulation? Everything is simulation.
For the mixed reality toolkit?
Yes.
When you say physical device, do you mean like other than your laptop?
Yes, like
I mean, you only ever need your laptop for anything in this life, to be honest. But if you mean like building, what do you have against C sharp justice? If you mean like building for the HoloLens, there's a HoloLens emulator that you can use as you learn. There are other tools. I think that if you're building AR, you can use your phone as a platform you're building for. In which case you don't need any extra device. So it really is what you want to do. All of you also come and tell me what C sharp did to you.
C# is crazy hard.
No, it's not. What do you write? Yeah, C++
C#
Unreal works with C++ is real, but you don't need to study that.
JavaScript and Python.
You write JavaScript and
CSS and
Python,
HTML.
CSS and HTML.
Yeah, there's no monetary reward for me to learn C# now. So
I mean,
Wow.
that's fair. That's fair. Like, I would never realistically say, oh, if you don't write this language, you can't do X or you can't work. Like, even when we are we're hiring new engineers, we even say, like, we don't put a particular language as a prerequisite. We're like, whatever it is that you already write, just come. We'll teach you what we write, right? I don't think that that's like a blocker, really. I'll say just like keep your eye out. So like Israel rightly said, if you're more a C++ person, you can find Unreal. So you just find what works for. If you write JavaScript, there is WebXR. I think you can use. I don't. I'll have to confirm that, but I think you can use JavaScript to write WebXR applications. So yeah, you have options that you can explore.
But I checked WebX. Okay. What I checked was WebVR. I saw it was like deprecated or something like that.
Yeah,
But let me.
possibly. I haven't checked out WebVR in a very long time. Um,
Okay. My
I think
network got.
that is why Unity and C Sharp is more applied because they have everything the language open source. They are actively working on improving, developing, adding new features and stuff like that. So
wait,
I think these things you can find something to do with your preferred language, but
yeah.
then I think it would be advisable to go for something that is widely that has a huge community. So yeah, I think that's generally my experience.
Yeah, like I agree, but like again, like truly, it's up to you. Like if you're like the platform that I would love to build for requires me learning a new language, you can learn a new language. It's you'll be fine. It's not you've already learned one language, you can learn a new one. But if you're like, no, I want to keep using the stack that I currently use, but I want to, build it for VR, then you have to then do the research to be like, how do I so if I write Python, do I want to, I don't know, write um what is Python used for these days? Cause interactions and for controllers and things like that. Like there's always like a way to start from where you are, and so like you can't use that as your reason to be like, oh, I don't write C# or I don't write C++, so VR isn't for me. That wouldn't be true. Yeah, that's my two
Okay.
cents on that matter.
But do you know any experts that does web XR or XR on the web in general? Like I want
There's
to.
actually somebody on my team that does MR for that. Part of their job is taking the thing that we're building. Like I said, our goal is for people to be able to connect from anywhere, and one of anywhere is the web. So yeah, there's a part of our team that is kind of dedicated to making sure that thing that we're doing can work on the web.
Okay, maybe Israel. Maybe we can find a way to get him in a session. There's a lot of talk about WebAssembly these days, and I think since XR or VR is resource intensive, it will use WebAssembly. So maybe that's a way of getting developers interested in the more interested in the VR space because it allows something like C++ to be run on the web,
Mm-hmm.
right? So yeah.
So you want a session on WebAssembly, or you want a session on how
More like a session on WebXR. with maybe WebAssembly in the title.
That's a focal point. Interesting. All right. Let me think about that and see what I find. We might be able
Okay.
to set that up. I know we are at time, but I can answer one more question if anybody has one.
Yeah, I think we should set that up.
Okay, cool.
One more question,
Well,
I think.
thank you.
Hi, Apollo, do you have a question?
Yeah, hello. So thank you so much for the session, Kendra. I would like to ask, what is a day in the life of a software engineer at the Microsoft Mixed Reality team?
Oh, that's I first of all, I'm not a software engineer, so I can't answer that question from my own perspective. But I know someone that will answer that question with wake up, write code, eat, sleep. Um, that is a difficult question to answer because we tend to believe in flexible work environments. So what that means for somebody, for two people, might be very different. But you can go actually there's a YouTube video with this exact topic that Adora would have made. Which is like in the life of an engineer in Microsoft. So I guess go follow Adora Wodo on
Yeah,
YouTube
sorry.
and you'll have an answer to your question. Oh, thanks for the links, Israel. These are actually interesting. Uh, Thank you, Emanuela, for being a part of this. Thank you, everyone, for showing up to this. It's always fun for me to engage with the community, and I hope we do more of this in the future. I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for inviting me, Israel.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for attending. Have a nice day. Sorry, good night. Oh.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kendra, for showing up. I think this has been an awesome session. I think doing something around bar and the like should be something we'd look into. So we'll be communicating and then find a way around doing that.